What's going on, guys? Damocles here, and today, by popular demand, I will be breaking down my tier list for held items in Pokemon Unite, showing you what I think is good, showing you what I think is bad, and why. As always, like, comment, subscribe if you find this video to be helpful, because it would really help me out, and at 20k subs, we are giving away a $20 Nintendo eShop gift card. Without further ado, let's just hop into the tier list. Okay, so, held items. I just want to explain how I set up this tier list initially. So we've got some auto-win team fight items, some really good items in general. We've got best items for most roles, fine but better options available items, super niche, and then just terrible items. And I think this kind of is better than just S, A, B, C, D, because obviously, everybody gets 3 of these items in their build, and I know you're investing a lot of money or gems or whatever it is into these items, so I just want to kind of layer them so that you guys will understand like their actual value. My TV just turned off. I hope that didn't show it on stream, but whatever. So without further ado, let's just hop into this, shall we? So I'm going to start off. Let's start off with attack weight. I'm going to put attack weight in the fine but better options available category. Why? Because attack weight as a stackable item is really, really good. For those of you that don't know what attack weight does, it gives you like flat attack as a base stat, but then also as you level it up, the passive is once you score, you also gain a stack of flat attack, and that stacks up to 6 times. So you end up getting some really beefy attack stats, I believe. At level 20, the passive goes up to like 72 attack, if I'm not mistaken. It's a really good attack item. It really is. It's just there's other better options, and given the fact that you only have a limited amount of slots for items in this game, it kind of falls by the wayside, in my opinion. So that's the reasoning for attack weight is fine, but there's definitely better options available. So, all right, let's talk about an item that is really good for most attack characters, and that is Muscle Band. Muscle Band is a phenomenal item. I use this on basically every single physical attacker possible. It is just a godsend on everything, and you can even use it in some niche situations on characters that don't benefit from attack stats. It basically increases your basic attack damage based on a percentage of the enemy Pokemon's health, which is always phenomenal in any MOBA. It gives you an attack speed increase at base level, and it also gives you a little bit of attack at as far as base stats are concerned. It is just a phenomenal item. It gives you so much value for what it is, and I use it on Cinderace, Greninja. I mean, like, you can literally use it on anybody. One of those niche segments that I was referring to is like Alolan Ninetales. Some people run it on Alolan Ninetales because you're able to proc the freeze faster with her like basic attacks and like kite people out. It's like a really obnoxious and good item, so it's definitely worth investing in my opinion. And you can't go wrong with this if you throw this on a character that uses a large amount of basic attacks. So just an all-around phenomenal item. Really big fan of it. And I use it literally everywhere. I mean, everywhere you could possibly imagine. Okay, let's do Assault Vest here. Assault Vest is a phenomenal tank item. It's really, really, really strong. Assault Vest basically gives you a special defense shield that will block a certain amount of special attack damage, and it regenerates once you're out of combat for, 8 seconds. It's really, really strong, and it is a staple in most defender builds. It's just a really, really, really good item as far as sustain is concerned, and as far as just lane defense is concerned. Like, if you are a defender and you happen to go up against, an Alolan Ninetales, for example, which is a pretty common matchup in the top lane, usually Alolan Ninetales or like a Pikachu can be found up there. Like if you're a Snorlax or something like that, this is like a non-conditional item. You don't have to get stacks or anything like that. It will just prevent some of the poke that comes from those special attack characters, and it's up quite often. You can go and just step out of combat for a brief moment and build it back up again, and then that way when you go to make another trade, they have to cut through a certain amount of shield in order to actually do damage to you. So it's just a really phenomenal item. The downside is, of course, if the enemy team somehow has an entire team of physical, then it doesn't really do much, but regardless, it's a massive staple on most defender builds. And so if you're a defender player, I would highly recommend investing into Assault Vest, because it's a top tier defender choice. Alrighty, what else we got here? XP Share. XP Share, I'll toss that up there. I'll probably put that in front of that. XP Share is just like the de facto support item, although you can also use it on defenders as well, depending on like your team composition or if you're playing with pre-mades. It is a selfless item. It basically makes it so you will not get XP from enemy Pokemon, or sorry, wild Pokemon, unless you get the last hit on them. XP Share and items like it in other MOBAs are also incredibly powerful. Just in general, it basically allows you to say you have a Cinderace in top lane or bottom lane, and you have an Eldegoss in bottom lane as well. It basically allows the Eldegoss to fall behind an XP so that your Cinderace can get online faster and carry the game easier. And then it also gives you XP when you are the lowest XP character on your team, which you should be if you're using XP Share, because you're not getting any experience from wild Pokemon. Something that I see all the time for whatever reason is like people running this in the jungle, people running this on like carries and stuff. You are just butchering your team. It should exclusively be used on defenders and supporters. Supporters like Eldegoss a lot more often. You don't want to have two of them on the same team, because then if just put it in perspective, the passive is based off of you being the lowest XP person on your team. So if two people are running XP Share and you both are the lowest on your team, then you guys are both just going to be low XP. Like one of you is going to be above that XP threshold, but also not able to get XP from wild Pokemon camps, so you're just going to be in limbo the entire time. It's just a disaster. So make sure if you're using this, maybe it's not the best solo queue item unless you're up in Masters, but if you're in a pre-made, make sure one of the supports or defenders on your team is running this so that you can get your carries online faster. Really, 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 staple support item as far as I'm concerned, because getting your carries ahead is what matters in these games. Like, you want to get the strong characters that need to carry the game online, and so make sure you do that, and make sure if you're running this, you help destroy those wild Pokemon in your lanes, but don't take the last hit. Because if you take the last hit, then you're going to be getting XP and you're going to screw up everything. So just help out your laners, be selfless, and you'll see some really, really nice results from using XP Share. Okay, let's talk about leftovers. Basically worthless. Leftovers is, people love it in the actual Pokemon games. It's kind of fun, but in Pokemon Unite, it's basically useless. It's more of like a noob trap, if I'm being totally honest. It gives you some out-of-combat HP regen, but again, you have 3 slots for items that could potentially be game-changing, potentially change fights for you. It's just not worth it. The cooldown of berries in lane is not that much. The amount of out-of-combat HP regen you get from standing on goals is decently significant at early game levels, and it's just a crutch if you are relying on leftovers to somehow win you engagements. It's just not a good item at all. The stats that it gives are not that great. The HP regen it gives is not that great. It doesn't provide you any real kind of combat ability. Do not run leftovers. It is a noob trap. Do not invest in leftovers. It is just not a good item. I promise you, do not. It's like running potion. Don't do it, okay? Just trust me. Trust me. Alrighty. Let's talk about Wise Glasses. Wise Glasses, phenomenal item. It is a staple on 99.999% of special attackers. It gives you percentage special attack as well as just flat special attack, which is really good. It's not conditional, which means you don't have to actually go and do anything. You don't have to score in order to proc it. And so it's just a really nice item to have. It has an immediate effect on your damage output. It's very helpful when you're trying to clear jungle faster as a special attacker, or when you're just trying to do more damage as a special attacker. Most special attackers should be running this in their builds, like no question about it, because it is just a phenomenal item. It's just more damage, more stats for absolutely 0 negative. It's just a really, really solid item. So that's why I have to put it up here. I'm going to put it in front of Assault Vest just because of the impact that it has. But I mean, really, all of these are going to be just staple items in their own particular builds. Okay, let's talk about Score Shield. Score Shield, I'm going to say, is super niche. Unless you're running like some kind of cheesy scoring build, it really doesn't help you out like combat wise in any way, shape, or form. It just helps you kind of cheese a couple points here and there. It might help you a little bit later on in the game where you're trying to score like bigger point thresholds, but really it's a super niche item, just not that good in my opinion. It has some interesting interactions with like other shields that you get in the game apparently, like I know that there's some Crustles that try and like cheese with it, where like you get the Crustle shield and then you get Score Shield on top of it in order for them to interrupt you from scoring. Apparently, again, have not tested it myself. This is just hearsay. Apparently, like they have to get through like multiple shields in order to like actually interrupt you. So it could be cheesy in that way. There's some like cheesy Talonflame scoring builds where you just like run like Fly and like Flame Charge. Plus Score Shield, and you just do nothing but try and score the entire game. But the problem is that the combat benefits are not that substantial. So like you're literally just dedicating an entire one of those, 1 out of 3 item slots to this like cheesy stuff. And in my opinion, I just don't think it's that great. I think if you're running a tankier build, like with a Crustle or something, you're probably going to want to run one of the good defender items. If you're running a Talonflame build, you're probably going to want to just get more damage so that you can win team fights and actually score, and you're not just scoring for the sake of scoring, right? Because team fights and getting those Dreadnought kills and stuff like that is really what wins games. But it's super niche. And that's why it's in the super niche category. It is literally just like there are a couple instances where it might be good, but overall it's just a lot worse than the other items. And that's my opinion. Feel free to disagree, but I will disagree with you. What else we got here? Let's do Shell Bell. Shell Bell, baby. Okay, Shell Bell is another one of those items for special attackers that I think is just a mandatory special attacker item. I think that it gives you... What does it give you? It gives you cooldown, it gives you special attack, and it heals you when you use your abilities. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of internal cooldown on that, so it's not like just like busted overpowered, but it's really, really helpful. It gives you a lot of useful stats, and it's really useful, especially when you're jungling or doing wild Pokemon camps for special attack characters, because their jungle clear speeds are usually significantly slower than their attacking counterparts. Think like Ghastly in comparison to Absol. I mean, that's a really extreme example, but your clear speeds are just a lot slower, so this allows you to not take as much damage as you are clearing the jungle, and it's just a really good item to have as far as survivability is concerned as well, because when you're dealing damage, like high burst damage that you do with most special attackers, you're going to get a nice chunk of a heal back, and usually Wise Glasses and Shell Bell are like the 2 mandatory slots on like 99% of special attacker builds in the game. So I would highly recommend, if you're planning on investing in stuff like that, look at Shell Bell, look at Wise Glasses. Also, cooldown reduction cannot be overstated enough, or understated, overstated. It can't be overstated enough how important it is. It's just a really strong thing to have when all of your abilities, for literally everybody in this game, it's 100% cooldown based. There's no mana, there's no other form of resource. It's 100% cooldown based. So if you reduce those cooldowns, you're increasing your damage output, you're increasing your actions per minute. It's just a really good stat to have, even though it's not that much, but regardless, Shell Bell, phenomenal item, absolutely nasty, and a staple in most special attack builds. Okay. Let's talk about focus, or scope lens, excuse me. Scope lens is, well, not similar to Shell Bell, but it is another one of those staples for physical attacking characters, like your Absols, your Cinderaces, your Greninjas, your Machamps, and everything in between. It gives you increased crit. That's all you got to know. Crit in these games is phenomenally helpful. It is a massive damage boost, and it helps you win some insane trades, especially early game that you might not win. I mean, everybody has seen, Absols, even in my Absol gameplay, just like two-shotting people early game, and it's because of the interaction of Scope Lens and some of these crit modifying buffs that a lot of these characters get. It's also just really helpful in general when your character is outputting a lot of basic attacks, because more basic attacks you output, the more likely you are to be critting with those basic attacks when you're running Scope Lens. It is just a phenomenal attack item, and I don't think it's really replaceable. So usually on most of my attack builds, I'm running Muscle Band and Scope Lens. No question about it, like 99.99%. I keep using 99.9%. I'll just say 100%. I literally have this on every single one of my attack characters. That combination anyway. So that's why I put it at the top of the list, because it is just, it's the best item for that role. Like Muscle Band, Scope Lens, Wise Glasses, Shell Bell. That's going to be your bread and butter there. So definitely look into investing into those. What else have we got here? Let's talk about Buddy Barrier. That is the auto-win team fights item, guys. Buddy Barrier is, well, I mean, I've been preaching about it for a little while, but I feel like it's still not really reaching across the community. Buddy Barrier is like really, 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 really good. Really good. And you don't really notice, you might not notice it that much until you reach those higher levels of play, like high ultra into masters, because I think that like people below that probably don't recognize how good it is. But when you are dealing with a pre-made team composition, or even if you're not dealing with a pre-made team composition, like having multiple people with buddy barriers is the most stifling thing, the most unbelievably annoying thing to deal with in these games. And what you might be thinking is, hey, like, you know, you're only using your Unite moves, you know, 4 times a match, maybe 3 to 5 times a match. But the thing is, now that we've played this game a bunch, is that you know when you're in those major team fights, right? Think about the team fights like 1, 2, and 3 at Dreadnought that are kind of mandatory. Think about the Zapdos team fight. That's basically when you're going to be using your Unite moves, right? Those are the most pivotal fights in the entire game, and every single one of those fights can decide the fate of a match. And so having something that gives you a 40% HP shield and an ally a 40% HP shield is insane when you are in the middle of those fights. Like, think about that. Like, if there's 2 teams and you are both dead even and you have to fight over a 50-50 Zapdos, and one team doesn't have Buddy Barrier and the other team has Buddy Barrier, the enemy team has to effectively go through another full half of an HP bar in order to deal damage to you and win that team fight. And that's like on practically every character if you're all running Buddy Barriers. Like, think about how obnoxious that is to deal with. Plus you have Eldegoss shields on top of that. It's just like, everybody complains about Gengar and other like broken stuff in this game, or like Zapdos. Buddy Barrier, when you encounter a team that is using Buddy Barriers well, or a bunch of people have Buddy Barriers, it is so annoying to deal with. And even though the base stats that it gives you is just HP, it's the passive is so good that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if HP isn't the best combat stat. And it's also good from an investment point of view, because you don't necessarily, if you're playing just attackers like I do, you don't necessarily have to bump this from 20 to 30 to see like benefits. You can just get it to level 20 so that its passive is maxed out at like the 40% HP shield, and you're good to go. And you can really, I'm serious, you can literally run this on like any Pokemon in the game. Any of them. I run this on Cinderace from time to time. I run it on Greninja a bunch. I've been experimenting with it on Greninja at least. You run this on Defenders. This is like just a really good staple item on any character, and it's part of the reason why some of these other items end up in these lower tiers, because it's like you run like 2 of these optimal choices, and then you could run a Buddy Barrier. And it's just the passive is so powerful in those team fights, and so game changing in those team fights, that it makes just these base stats and stacking stats from some of these other items not as good. So if you haven't run Buddy Barrier before and you've been like holding out on it, just give it a shot. Just give it a shot. Drop it in the comments and let me know what you think about it after you've experimented with it. I promise you, you'll be like, yo, this is super annoying. And like, if you're running with a couple buddies and everybody's running Buddy Barrier, it's the most obnoxious thing to deal with like in this whole game, because the enemy team has to cut through so many shields. I can't say enough good things about this item. It's absolutely insane. So definitely give it a shot. Buddy Barrier rant over. Okay, so what else we got here? What else we got here? All right, so float stone, I'm going to put it in fine but better options available. For those of you that don't know, just did a whole like video testing float stone and how good it is, and I think it's a little bit overhyped. You can go and watch that video for yourself. I'll put like a little blurb that pops up here, or just go check out the channel. It's like the last uploaded video here, but basically, to get out of combat in this game, it takes 8 seconds, roughly. And Floatstone, the passive is what you want. The passive is based off of you being out of combat. It gives you like a 20% movement speed increase. And it gives you some flat movement speed as well, which is really useful when you're kiting and stuff, which is why I'm saying it's fine, but better options are available. It's really useful for when you're kiting or chasing down people. But you have to think about it this way. The passive is almost useless. Like, if you get into any combat at all, by the time you are able to traverse the map, you're not going to have the passive back up. So it's almost as if you're not using Floatstone at all. And so for that reason, you're almost better off using something else if you're going straight off base attack. So that's why Floatstone is in this area. I don't want to harp on it too much because, again, we have like a whole like 15-minute video breaking down my thoughts on it. You can go and look at that for yourself if you think I'm putting it too low. But I'm not putting it in the super niche or anything like that. I recognize like the kiting potential, the chasing potential is there, but the passive is almost 100% useless. And in a game where you have so many different movement options and traversal options, it's just like, not that great, in my opinion. Okay, so we've got, let's do Focus Band. Goodness. Focus Band is another phenomenal defender item. It's also good on some all-rounders and even attackers as well. It's just a really good item all around. It gives you some percentage HP healing when you get low HP, and that is just good in most scenarios. You guys saw in a couple videos ago when I was trying to like murk a Haunter, I think. A lot of people said that Focus Band saved his life. I kind of agree. It's just a real nice life-saving item, and it synergizes really well with a lot of the tanks in this game, a lot of the all-rounders in this game. It'll save your butt in a lot of situations, and it's one of those items that is kind of like it's top of the tier, but it's not as, I don't want to say not as impactful. I put it kind of in the buddy barrier category where like it's maybe your third item that you pick. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to make or break your builds, but it's just a really overall helpful item. Makes sense? And so you have some like really cool synergy, and it's really, I would consider it probably a staple on most defenders, just because obviously defenders rocking large HP pools. This is going to be healing you based off of your HP, so ipso facto gets a lot of value. And it's also nice on like guys like Lucario or like Machamp that are like standing in that fight for a significant amount of time, and it really coincides quite nicely with Lucario's passive. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but where he gets a shield at low HP, he gets a shield, and then if you're running focus, he'll go and also get a nice heal out of it. So it's just one of those more like clutch items. Very good to have. It's just a solid item all the way around, so you can't go wrong with Focus Band, in my opinion. Alrighty, let's look at special attack specs. I'm going to put this right next to attack weight. The reason why I'm putting it below attack weight slightly is that like attack weight, it gives you nice base attack and it stacks up, and so does special attack specs. But the difference is that for attack weight, there's no like item that gives you percentage attack increase like there is with Wise Glasses for special attack. Makes sense? But there is Muscle Band, so it's just kind of, special attack is not, losing my train of thought. Special attack specs is just in that same tier as like, okay, you're going to be running Wise Glasses, you're going to be running Shell Bell, and then you're probably going to run Buddy Barrier or Energy Amplification instead, and not running the stacking item because it's conditional. That's not to say that stacking items aren't good. They are. They give you a decent chunk of stats. Like, they're really good. It's just that these items don't require any kind of situational use. They don't require you to go and score. And as you get up into the higher tiers, you're not scoring as often. And so maybe you don't go and score 6 times in a match, even if they're tiny scores. Maybe you don't score 6 times in a match. Maybe you don't get the full use of it. Whereas if you're just running Wise Glasses, Shell Bell, and Buddy Barrier, you're getting all of those without having to rely on any kind of conditions. Makes sense? So I put it a little bit below attack weight, but it's still a good item nonetheless. And yeah, these stacking items, they're good. It's just they're not as good as some of the more staple items, in my opinion. Okay. Let's do Energy Amplifier. So, where do I want to put this? I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put that there. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, so Energy Amplifier. I actually really like this item. I'm coming around to this item a lot more. And I'm using it kind of interchangeably with Buddy Barrier. Why? It gives you a 21% attack damage increase after you use your Unite move. So that means your Unite move is getting the benefit of that, and for a couple seconds after you use your Unite move, you are dealing 21% more damage, which is really good. Really good. I mean, it's basically the highest percentage damage increase that you can get in this game right now. 21% damage is a lot of damage, and I use it not just on like characters. So before I get ahead of myself, like characters like Charizard, this is like mandatory on them, in my opinion, because he gets so much benefit out of his Unite move. It also increases your Unite charge rate, and it gives you cooldown reduction. And having a faster Unite move charge rate, especially on a character like Charizard, for those of you that have played him, like later game Charizard, when he gets his Unite move, he can literally get it up like every 30 seconds. It's like pretty insane. And it makes it so when he hops into his Unite move is going to be dealing 21% more damage when you're going and trying to nuke carries. It's what allows Charizard to melt people. And that's the most obvious example, right? Is like Charizard, oh, he's in his Unite move, he does a lot of damage in Unite move, so he should use Energy Amplifier. But I've been experimenting using it on a bunch of different like carries and stuff like that, because it is such a large damage increase that you could go and like say using it on a Cinderace. Cinderace has a really quick casting ult, right? He goes and just shoots the Pyro Ball at whoever. But then afterwards, for what I don't know the exact amount of seconds afterwards, but for a few seconds afterwards, all of your basic attacks, your blaze kicks, everything is going to be dealing 21% increased damage. So it kind of lets you start off that team fight and give you like a massive amount of burst to like try and chunk out enemy targets, try and beat enemy carries and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I use it interchangeably with Buddy Barrier because they both kind of fill that third item role where it's like, I'm going to have, on my Cinderace, I'm going to have my Muscle Band and Scope Lens, but maybe if I want to be able to duel better and I want to be able to absolutely delete the enemy front line and do a lot more damage, I run Energy Amplifier and I sacrifice that safety of Buddy Barrier for like literally the biggest damage increase that you can get in the game. And I just find them kind of fun to use because you get that, you just start slamming people. You guys go and try it out. Let me know what you think of it. But that's just another instance of like where I've been using it. It's just a really fun item to use. I don't necessarily use it on Cinderace for that ult charge rate, but for the damage increase. That's why I put it for best items for most roles, because it is kind of one of those things that's interchangeable with Buddy Barrier. Alrighty, so Aeos Cookie. I'm going to put it right there with the other stacking items. Aeos Cookie is something that I think in the lower elos and in like standard games you can get away with using it, and it's like really helpful. It's like a fun noob stomping item. It's another stacking item, but every time you score you get a large amount of HP, like base HP added to your HP pool. And I want to say it comes at like level 20. It comes out to end up like after 6 stacks you get like an extra like 1,000 HP. 1,500 HP, which is like a decent chunk of HP, especially when you're playing like a character like Snorlax. And so one of my buddies who runs Snorlax all the time, like as we were climbing up, he used Aeos Cookie a lot, and he would just go and try and like get a couple quick scores early on, you know, just like 1 point scores to stack that up, and that way in lane fights you have that HP advantage, and it's a lot harder to chunk you out. But like these other stacking items, it loses its effectiveness, in my opinion, as you climb up in the tiers, because a lot of teams aren't just going to let you go and score like 1-pointers every single time, or they're going to capitalize on the fact that you're overextended and they're going to kill you. And so for that reason, I have to put it into the find but better options available, because again, it's one of those stacking items where it's like, all right, most tanks are probably going to be running like Focus Band, Assault Vest, and Buddy Barrier, or, you know, maybe they'll run Buddy Barrier, Assault Vest, and XP Share if there's not like an Eldegoss or something on your team. It's still a decent item if you're not running one of those. It's a good defensive item. It really is. It gives you a large chunk of HP, which can really change some fights. It's just its efficacy at higher levels of play is severely diminished, in my opinion, because you just aren't going to be able to get those large amount of score, the massive amount of scoring numbers that you need in order to max this out. Just my opinion, but I'm sticking to it. All right, so I believe this is last but not least, and basically worthless, is going to be your Rocky helmet. This item is just not good. It's just not good, guys, straight up. There's some cheesy builds I think that people run with Garchomp, where his passive that reflects some damage back plus this can equal some like kind of funny shenanigans. But overall, it's just not a good item at all. It deals, oops, sorry for hitting the mic. It deals damage when you take a certain amount of damage, and then you have to, I believe you have to go out of combat in order to reset it. Just like some of those other out-of-combat items, it's just not that good. But in comparison to another out-of-combat item like Floatstone, at least Floatstone has some like actual good combat benefits, and the base stats that it gives you are good. This is just not a good item at all, in my opinion. Definitely needs some buffs. I thought originally it was going to act kind of like a Thornmail from League of Legends, where like every time you take a hit, it reflects a percentage of that hit back at the target. It's kind of like a counter attack item, but it doesn't work really in that way, and so I got to put in the same tier as Leftovers. It's just not a good item. I would not invest in this item at all. I know some tanks are thinking like, oh man, it's, you know, well, at least some tanks coming into Pokemon Unite were like, oh, it's a, you know, it's a goodness, it's like a Thornmail item. I can just use that. I'll slap it on with an Assault Vest or a Focus Band, but really your tanking items are mostly going to be Assault Vest, Focus Sash, and Score Shield, unless it's not Score Shield, excuse me, Buddy Barrier, unless you're running Aeos Cookie or you're doing some cheeky stuff with like a Crustle and Score Shield. And I just think that these two items, I don't even know how you would buff them to make them good, unless you just made like Leftovers just give you just straight up percentage HP healing like at all times, but that might be busted. But I do think like having Rocky Helmet fulfill more of a Thornmail role would be really helpful in a meta that is currently somewhat dominated by basic attack characters. It would give the tanks a little bit more to fight back with. But that's a video for another time, talking about buffs and debuffs. But this is my held items tier list, guys. I hope you found it to be interesting or informational. If you think I'm incorrect about some things, just like my last tier list video, please drop a comment below. Try and be civil, though, because like otherwise either I'm just going to not respond to you or I'm just going to make you look silly. So just be nice. I'm open to discussion. Again, these things are, a lot of them are personal choice, but also I'm trying to help you save on item enhancers, okay? Item enhancers, especially if you're playing free to play, you don't want to be wasting them on something that is a bad item. And so you got to be careful when you are recommending items just because you think, oh, this character or this item is X, Y, and Z, that some people are going to be going and spending item enhancers that are really hard to come by on those items. And so that's why it's like I'm trying to give you guys an understanding of why I'm choosing these items, why I'm saying that they're good. Not just, oh, this is good, this is bad, but like from an investment point of view, like you're going to be, if you go and you invest in Muscle Band Scope Lens, you're going to be able to apply that to, you know, half of the Pokemon roster. If you go invest into Wise Glasses Shell Bell, you're going to be able to use that on like half the Pokemon roster. Like it's more bang for your buck than if you get a Score Shield that you're going to be able to use on like maybe 2 characters, or leftovers that I guess you could throw it on any character, but it's not good on any character. You know what I mean? So like, that's why like sometimes I get like a little bit more defensive when it comes to like stuff like this, because this is stuff like people either are spending like actual cold hard cash on it, or they're using item enhancers and they don't have the cold hard cash to like to purchase more item enhancers. So like it's a significant investment, and so that's just my opinions. Again, 100% my opinion. You can totally disagree. Let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys found this video to be helpful. I want to do another Pokemon tier list now that some of the buffs and nerfs have come out for like Gengar and stuff like that, because there's definitely been some shakeups. But I am getting married in like 4 days, so I'm trying to stockpile some videos so that I don't have, there's no like lull in the content. You know what I mean? So forgive me if I miss a post or something like that, or I miss anything. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. It would mean the world to me. Would love to hit 20K so I can give away this gift card. And you guys have been so great so far. I really appreciate it. It's made the lead up to my wedding even better. And I just really appreciate all the comments and discussions that you guys are having in the comments, because it's, I like to learn as well. I like to get new video ideas and stuff like that. And I hope you guys are enjoying this Pokemon Unite content. So that's the end of my spiel. Thank you guys for watching. I have no idea how long this video went. Apologize if it went on for too long. But that's going to be it for me, guys. Damocles out.